dead are already here.
Hey, you, welcome back to the channel. And that was the beginning of what we got in Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 3, The Long Night. So, we're going to talk about a little bit why this episode went the way it did. And I got some theories about that. As well as talk about, I think why people were so disappointed with the ending, although many agree it was a great episode. So this episode was awesome in so many ways, and some people feel that it gets to the end of the episode and it just kind of undoes a lot of those great things. And if you haven't watched the episode yet, go watch it first before you watch this review, because this is going to deal more so with why the episode was shot the way it was written, the way it was written, and we're going to go over some theories about that. So the problem many have had with the episode has been due to how it has in many ways kind of dismantled the entire plot, and it's been a lot of dead ends going forward, right? So you take something like the Night King. Is that the end of it? So it's built up over, over 8 seasons to just have him be, defeated in the end by Arya Stark. But in addition to that, we still don't know what the Night King wants, right? We get these flashbacks of how he becomes the Night King, but clearly that still doesn't answer any of the questions as to why why he's on this path he's on. Now, some people say he could just be a super weapon, a machine, and he doesn't need a purpose, or he doesn't have a purpose. And that would work if Bran's, it wouldn't be all these awkward pauses between him and Bran Stark. If he's just a machine that's set out to destroy mankind, then why is it such a big deal, and why is it such a mystery between why he wants to destroy the Three-Eyed Raven, Bran Stark? I understand they have warging abilities, and maybe they can see things on how to defeat him and how to stop him and a variety of things like that. But it doesn't make sense in the writing why they wouldn't be clear about what's going on with that, why the Night King wants to destroy Bran. So we're going to explain why it was written the way it was written. I have some theories and why it turned out the way it turned out. So if you watch my videos, you already know that I've done a series of videos speaking about Bran is the Night King. Now, if you look at Bran from this point on, the Night King's defeated. They're going to go on now and battle out with Cersei for the Iron Throne. What purpose does Bran serve at this point? He, it's clearly it's more to what's happening with Bran than what we got to see in that episode. That is not the end. So, as many of my videos talked about Bran being the Night King and talking about these time travels and alternate universes and all that, because it's never really been explained why Bran's able to go back in time, and they haven't done anything with that, and see all these events. What's the purpose of that? Even if he's a warg, what's the purpose of him being able to just go back in time and go all the way back and see what's happening with the Night King and a variety of things? This is because Bran is the Night King, and the Night King wants to destroy this version of himself that is going to be the only force that could stop him in the end. That's why he always seeks out the Three-Eyed Raven, my opinion, right? Why is he after Bran? It's still it's nothing Bran can really do at that point in this episode to the Night's King. The Night King is already just about won the entire battle, right? It's no reason to go after Bran at this point in time. What can Bran possibly do to stop him? Aha. Bran can stop him because Bran has the ability to go back in time and undo that timeline that the Night King is part of. That's why he needs to destroy Bran, so he doesn't have the problem of having Bran just go back in time and disrupt his timeline, right? So it's like a time loop, right? And they're going back and forth because this is the only thing I can see that makes sense at this, at this point in time. Now, the reason it doesn't just end the way it ends and Bran's still alive and we're going to go on, I think that it may very well be that the story of Bran and the complete story of Bran and the Long Night and the Age of Heroes and all these things, or the first Long Night, I think it may very well end up being that it's going to be left undone until this prequel series comes out. And I won't be surprised if they show Bran as part of this prequel series, because it makes sense, right? Because Bran can travel back in time. So Bran will probably be in this prequel series, and the entire mystery and story surrounding him and what the Night King wanted and a variety of things, I think will go on to be answered in that prequel series. Now, what I think is Bran will remain quite cryptic the rest of the series so that they can push that information in there. Now, interesting enough, I was going to say this for another video, but I think it's paramount that we focus on this because it was key parts of the episode, so that you're able to hold on to this as we go forward with the end of the Game of Thrones, so you know where it's headed. So a lot of people have come up with some very interesting theories about how Game of Thrones ends. Many of us thought that it would end, this battle would end in either the death of Daenerys or Jon or both, or I didn't think both would die, but I thought there was a possibility that one would die, and probably before one died, they kind of came to terms with the rift in their relationship. And the thing is, especially with Jon Snow, he has that thing where he loses his loved ones quite a bit. And I thought that and many of us had kind of predicted that Daenerys would die as Nissa. And so I was kind of thinking, well, maybe that could happen, that Dany would die trying to save Jon, and he would go forth as the heir apparent, right, to the Iron Throne. It didn't work like that. They both came out of that. In fact, a lot of main characters didn't die yet, but I think they will die with the upcoming battle. Many of the people we thought were going to die in this battle are going to probably still end up dead. What's interesting about the episode, which was a great clue to the ending of the Game of Thrones series, is what we got in the crypts with between Tyrion Lannister and Sansa, as they're kind of hiding behind Ned's crypt, and they have this kind of short conversation about, well, actually it started in the crypts prior to that. It was kind of ongoing. It started before the dead got there, and that's when Sunday was upset about them talking about the Dragon Queen Daenerys, as Sansa was saying it wouldn't work because Daenerys being a Targaryen, she would come between them as he serves the Dragon Queen, he serves Daenerys, and so it would be this division in loyalties, as it were. But the way she says that, right, it's almost like she's considering it, because she says you were the best of them. Sansa's been very much damaged. Her relationship with suitors at this point, she's went through psychopaths and, the most powerful men in the world that were psychopaths. She's had chances with attractive, the heartthrobs of Westeros like Loras Tyrell, who was unavailable, obviously, as his preference wasn't in the direction of Sansa. So she hasn't had any luck with men. And Tyrion was the only person who was nice to her. So this is the big clue. Sansa and Tyrion will marry and rule Westeros. Jon Snow will end up dead. Um, so will Daenerys. So will the dragons. So let's break it down real quick because this is a major clue to help y'all understand it. So what we do in the whole Game of Thrones mythos is sometimes we erroneously use as pointers J.R.R. Tolkien, who did the Lord of the Rings, who's been a lot of inspiration for George R.R. Martin's work with A Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones. Where the error happens is that many theories have tried to identically match Game of Thrones to Lord of the Rings. There are things, elements, and endings that we could pull from Lord of the Rings that will basically predict the ending. However, the most important thing that gets left out of many theories is one of the greatest inspirations for A Song of Ice and Fire, and that is the War of the Roses, a real war that ushered in the end of the Plantagenet dynasty leading up to the Tudors, where you have the House of Lancaster versus the House of York in England. This is a big inspiration to why George R.R. Martin wrote Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire. So it is more likely they're pulling from that because the biggest conflict in Game of Thrones has been the war between the Lannisters and the Starks, right? That's been the main forces at war there. This is a throwback to the War of the Roses. The Lancasters represent the Lannisters, and the House of York in England represents the Stark household. What happens in the War of the Roses is at the end of it, a Lannister king weds a Yorkish house of the York household, and so what you get is you get this union. So who are these figures? Tyrion is the Lannister king. Interesting enough, his name has a lot to do with nobility or royalty. And Sansa is the Yorkish queen. So you have a Lancaster king and a Yorkish queen. York taken from Stark. A Stark queen marries a Lannister king. So that's the big clue. That's how we know that's how things will go. Now, here's where we borrow the George R.R. or rather J.R.R. Tolkien reference to Lord of the Rings as the main influence. This has to do with what happens to the greater mysteries and people tied up in all of these stories and heroes. What happens at the end of Lord of the Rings? They all have to go away. Gandalf goes away, just like Melisandre went away. Uh, uh, the dragons will go away because they're composed of magic as well. The White Walkers are all dead. It is the end of magic and mysteries, just like how everybody gets on that boat at the end of Lord of the Rings and they sail away. It is a time for man, and it is a time for a rule that champions every citizen, um, and that puts the people first. Right? No more kings, tyrant kings. Finally, a good, wise ruler who who encapsulates all the qualities of what you're going to have in Westeros with Sansa Stark ruling Westeros. Now, unfortunately, Jon Snow is a hero. Daenerys is a hero. The dragons are mythological creatures. And much like in the Lord of the Rings idea, they all have to go away. So I don't believe if War of the Roses is such a big influence on the Song of Ice and Fire, I don't think that it's going to end with John just being Aegon the 6th and ruling in that way. He more likely will die in this battle, as well as the dragons, but they will die putting an end to the tyrannical, crazy rule of Cersei. Then we will have a kingdom that is probably more democratic. You know, the North may actually rule themselves. The kingdoms may break up. We already know it was a promise for the Ironborn to rule themselves, right? You don't have anything really left of any other house. You notice every other house is dying out. The Mormont house just died out. The Baratheon house is pretty much dead. Gendry could probably die in the next episode. In the next battle. And so all of the households are pretty much done, right? They've all been done, which means that it's probably going to be left the Starks and the Lannisters who are gonna or rather the Starks are gonna rule the North, independent, and the Crown Lands are gonna be ruled by Tyrion and Sansa, and the Ironborns are gonna rule themselves. Um, the Vale, who's in control of the Vale? I guess it's Proxy Sansa now, probably in control of the Vale, right? But anyway, I think that's how it's going to end. But again, the writing, the story had to be told this way, because if they would have really defeated the Night King the way they wanted to, like they tell this story about they don't want to be John, Dan and Dave. They tell the story about how, which is true, because John is in every major battle. It's like John needs a break. He is in every major battle that's occurred. But they kind of tell the story like they just threw Arya in there. We can't have John do this. And they kind of try to just throw that in there like that's it. I think that's just a clever way of not giving us the full story of what they want to see happen with Bran. Some of it is actually true as well. That maybe they did kind of want to not just make John the hero of every single battle. But I can say that I don't believe that the way the Night King died, in that writing, it had to be done that way. You know, you notice the Night King getting a good look at Bran, and getting this good look at Bran like he always does when he faces off with the Three-Eyed River, which is another version of Bran, because I think the old Three-Eyed River, who many think is Brendan Rivers, taken from the books. I think it's a slight adaptation to that, and I think Bran is him, or some version of him. So he looks at all of them. Otherwise, I don't really see a reason why it would be necessary to have the Three-Eyed River still be this huge mystery and kind of make the Night King just this big MacGuffin, right? It's got to be, more than that. And I think the Long Night's gonna, as I said earlier in the video, detail that and give us the answers to that. But that's my thoughts on it, guys. A great episode. Many of us agree. Everybody liked everything in the episode. Great director. The writing, again, didn't match up with the prophecies, I believe, to mask that prequel series and that information. The mystery of the Night King is not over. Bran is still alive. So what exactly is he going to be doing? I believe he's going to give us glimpses into who he really is and have a part in that prequel series. But that's all I want to say in this video, guys. I'd love to hear you guys' opinions about it. But until next time, take care.